Hello, my name is Isabella Maggard and I am an intern at the Wise County Extension Office. Today I would like to talk to you about the importance of animal biodiversity and wildlife conservation. So what is biodiversity? This is basically the variety of animals, plants, fungi, and microorganisms and anything else that make up our natural world. So this is the measure of variation at the genetic, species, and ecosystem level. It is important because each species has a role to play in the environment and they work together to maintain balance. So as you can tell, there are a lot of described species and mammals make up only about 6,495 of those. Insects, on the other hand, are one of the most diverse groups because they have a protective shell. They are small and can fly. This helps them escape from predators and move to new environments. And they also produce offspring relatively quickly. Mammals, on the other hand, are evolutionary younger, and then they reproduce less offspring. So animals are so diverse, and this happened when the bilateral symmetry evolved. This gave them a definite brain, which increased biodiversity because they were able to interact with more species, and then it increased their mobility, so they were able to move around and see more than they used to. So this is the northern elephant seal, and they experienced a severe bottleneck effect in the 1800s. This was a drastic reduction in population that leaves survivors with little to no genetic diversity. They were nearly hunted to extinction, and at one point the population consisted of 20 to 40 individuals. They lost almost all genetic diversity then, and then the population finally began increasing in the early 1900s when the Mexican government designated Guadalupe Island as a biological reserve, which allowed the population to recover. Today there are more than 150,000 individuals in this population, so this is a good example of how when genetic diversity was lost, we helped conserve it. So I want to talk a little bit about wildlife conservation. So wildlife conservation is the practice of protecting plant and animal species and their habitats. This is also the wise use of natural resources without wasting them. That's the perfect example of the elephant seal and how wildlife conservation helped their population increase, and now there's a lot of individuals compared to when they were drastically reduced to only 20 to 40. So what is the goal of wildlife conservation? It is to protect wildlife in the wilderness from being extinct, to maintain ecological balance, to protect the biodiversity from being destroyed, and to provide economic benefits. So how can you help? One thing you can do is to protect wildlife habitats, consume less, recycle more, use fewer herbicides and pesticides, prevent invasive species from spreading, become a member of a conservation group, or even become a volunteer and help clean environments or rehabilitate wildlife. With me I have Josh Belcher. He's a farmer here in Pound, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his deer population in this area and how it's decreased over the few years.
So when I bought this property in 2019, I knew that historically there was a very high deer population here. You can see 30, 40 in the hayfield any day, and we didn't see any at all. So talking with the neighbors, a couple years before we moved here, there was an outbreak of blue tongue, and the population decreased by 80–90%. Blue tongue is a virus spread by a midge, causes hemorrhagic fever. The deer will go towards water and they actually hemorrhage, and that's what causes their tongue to turn blue. The population is recovering. You do still we see some deer, but not nearly what they were a decade ago or even 5 years ago. But I think that eventually they will return. As far as other interesting thing, I don't know if it's related, but we don't have a very high density of coyotes here. With game cams out, you see an occasional coyote, and we hear occasional coyote. We have a very high density of turkey and rabbits.
So do people still hunt up here, and do they kill some deer or not really?
They do hunt here. Nobody's hunted on my property, but the adjoining properties, and there are some deer that come out.